Today we're going to look at the GPT-4 OmniSolver app that I've built. This app uses two GPT agents, the user and the assistant, which talk to one another, trying to solve a task and provide solutions for a task you specify. Let's demo to see how it works. We are specifying a role for the user, which is an aspiring gardener. It's a custom role. AI assistant role will be a farmer. And our task is how to start growing vegetables in my backyard. And we'll give 3 turns for these AI agents to talk to one another. And then we click Start Solving. When we start this, we get our original task prompt and the specified task prompt. They are the same because we haven't used the task specifier, which allows the GPT to take in the task and make it more detailed. And our aspiring gardener, which is the user, gives some instructions, such as determine the size of your backyard garden with no input. And then the farmer responds with solutions. Measure the area of the sunny spot you've chosen for your garden. So give some solutions to that instruction. What vegetables? Research which vegetables grow well in your climate. Choose the ones that you enjoy eating. And I give some examples. What location, for example. And while this is running, we have a status bar. Depending on the amount of chat turns we have specified. This shows you where we're at in the process. And the farmer gives location advice, close to water source, good drainage, avoid areas that are prone to flooding. And then this is how it goes. You can also choose from one of 50 roles, both for the user and the assistant. Let's choose an analyst. And then as the assistant role, let's choose a programmer. The task is how to analyze financial data with Python. This time, let's click the task specifier, and we can choose the word limit for the specified task, so that the return task is hopefully not too long. Now our new task is programmer will create a Python script that utilizes pandas library to analyze companies' financial data. So GPT has taken our task and made it more detailed. Let's again go for 3 rounds and start solving this problem. While this is going, I just want to mention that I did put a warning here that these are AI models, large language models. So they can be very good in providing some thoughtful instructions. I mean, some useful ways of approaching a situation, but do not solely rely on the outputs of these systems. They are obviously, at the end of the day, AI based. So the analyst asks for programmer to install libraries for data processing. Programmer says, okay, we need to install pandas, numpy, matplotlib, seaborn, and plotly. Then the analyst says, import the necessary libraries again. And this was to install and now import. So we are importing these. Load the financial data, and here we go, loading the CSV file as a data frame. We've only set to go for 3 rounds, but let's try it this time with like 6. Again, the same instruction, import the necessary libraries, import pandas, matplotlib, so on and so forth. And then we can retrieve the data stock, but this time it's going to try to get the top 10 companies S&P 500. Here are the tickers. It's going to use Yahoo Finance for tickers, and it gets the stock data. Not sure why it's not returning in Markdown, but that's fine. Calculate the daily returns, example code. Here we go. And then calculate the average daily return. Average returns, return group by ticker mean. We're getting the mean of those. And calculate the top 3 performing stocks as average return, sort value, ascending falls, and the first 3 elements of that. Then calculate the overall average value. And so this is how it goes. So you can actually make your task as detailed as you'd like. You also have access to the history. This app is online. You can go to omnisolver.streamlit.app. The link will be in the description. And you have actually access to some of the other users' instructions as well. When you click on these, the history of that will be actually displayed. Here we go. The task was write a Python program to search Google Scholar. So we are now looking at the chat history. And you can see the settings and the instructions, like it's installing Scholarly, and then here is the code to retrieve some documents, and then how to test it. So there's a test, and then search Google Scholar function. So this is pretty useful. Here's an updated version. Modify the function to return a message if no results are found. So this is very iterative, very useful. Take it with a grain of salt, but you can really use this to tackle some of the problems you may have. You can actually if you have anything in the chat history that you want to delete, for example, how to analyze financial data, which we have done. If you click on it, it will load here. You can examine it, or you can actually delete it, and then it will be gone. Here we go. And now it's gone. We're going to review the code shortly, but you can actually run this in the terminal as well. I'm going to make the code available both for the terminal version and the Streamlit version at my Patreon, for my Patreon supporters. The link will be in the description. The Streamlit version will be available for higher tier Patreon supporters, the $30 membership. The link is also at the online app. You can actually click on the download code here from here as well. You can also run the Streamlit version from your local machine as well if you feel like it. But let's demo the terminal app real quick. The terminal app is simpler. Here we go. The available AI assistance code is, I tried to choose what might be useful, but there's a custom role. If you want to use that, you just choose your role here. For example, let's just say to a designer, and then we choose a role for the AI assistant. Let's just say a web developer here. Say the task is, how can I build a website for my designs? Do you want to use the task specifier? Let's just say no. Enter chat turn limits. Let's go with 3. And then now the agents will start. What platform do you want to use to build the website? As a web developer, I can recommend WordPress as a platform to build your website. What is the purpose of the website? Your designs are to sell them. So sometimes the roles can get confused. As a designer, you'll need to clarify the purpose of the website. So it gives some explanation, showcase your designs in a portfolio style website. As a web developer, I can recommend you purchase a domain name hosting service. A domain name is a web address. There are many domain name hosting providers such as GoDaddy and so on and so forth. So this is really useful if you want to explore a domain which you have no previous knowledge of. You know, you can at least get a good starter into that domain with this OmniSolver Task Explorer. Like I said, the code for the terminal version will be available. Link will be in the description for my Patreon supporters for the $9 tier, and the Streamlit version will be available at the higher tier. Both links will be in the description. I got inspired by the CAMEL library for this. We are using CAMEL as underneath, behind the scenes, communicative agents for mind exploration. I'll put the link in the description. And I came across a Langchain implementation of it and took this and improved it greatly. Also added a Streamlit user interface. Both links will be in the description. I also have created the EcoHive AI Academy web app at ecohive.live. You can search all my videos, 130 plus of them. They're all free, no sign up required. You can watch them right here. Take a look at their descriptions. Find the download codes to the ones you like. Also, you can search over them instantly. For example, we are talking about agents. So if you want to explore other agent-related videos, Langchain or otherwise, you can search them here and watch them and get the code download links as well. Now let's review the code. Let's start with the terminal version as it is simpler because there's quite a lot to go through. And then we'll move on to the Streamlit version. So we are doing all our necessary imports. We are using the chat completions from Langchain. And we are importing this CAMEL agent from CAMEL agent file. And also the assistant inception prompt and user inception prompt from the inception prompts file. So these are the files I have created. Let's take a look at the CAMEL agent. This is a class which actually deals with the actions like the resetting, initializing messages, updating messages, and step-by-step execution of the agent. This is a class that I found at the Langchain's implementation. So I have created a new file for it. So I'm importing it into our main.py file here. So we can just simply use it without cluttering our code. Next, let's take a look at the inception prompts. This is the assistant's inception prompt. You can read it here, but it gets a role name, user role, assistant role name, user role name, the task, and it is instructed to create a solution for it one step at a time, and it's able to accept the next request. And the user inception prompt is the same, but this time it's actually prompted to give instructions and also some inputs wherever necessary. So we are importing these so that our code looks cleaner here. We are importing term color for some beautified, pretty outputs in the terminal. This is our function to select role. This is how we get the user input to select a role. And this is our roles list. I've just created this. You can feel free to modify this. And we assign the assistant and user role name. We take input for the task. Then we ask if we want to use task specifier. Then we get a word limit because we want task specifier is an API call to GPT endpoint. So we want to limit that. That's why we're taking a word limit so that it doesn't go on forever. Task specifier system message is this. Task specifier prompt is this. It takes in the role names, task prompt, and a word limit. And then it tries to make it more specific, creative, and imaginative. Then we are using the Langchain template and the agent with the CAMEL agent, which we are importing from the CAMEL agent py file, and the task specifier message, and then the specified task message. Once we have made the call, we get it back, we print it, and then if we don't use the specifier, then our specified task is equal to the task. Then this is to get the system message for the assistant and the user, and then we return those with this function. And now we are actually creating the agents with the prompts and the user roles and whatnot right here. And we are defining the agent, user agent, and the assistant agent. And then we start by resetting them. And then we initialize the chat as the system message being now start to give instructions one by one. And then we get a user message and then go forward one step. Then we're about to start the loop. And then we print the original task prompt and the specified task prompt. This might be different than our original task prompt, right? Then we get the chat turn limit and end by asking the user, and it's just 0. That's where we're just going to start. And we say, well, how many times do you want these agents to interact with one another? Then we start a while loop. Then we get a user AI message and then user message. Then we print that. We get an AI message and we print that. And then when the task is done, we break out of it. If the task was completed, if it's deemed completed by the user, otherwise we print everything on the terminal. So this is it for the terminal version. Like I said, this code will be available for download at Patreon. Link will be in the description. Now the Streamlit version is pretty much the same. Before we go on, let's take a look at the requirements file. Both for the terminal, we have Langchain, OpenAI, and term color, and Streamlit for the Streamlit interface. The main differences from the terminal version is that obviously this is a user interface in the browser, but also actually is able to keep track of the histories as the chat history in a JSON file. It is also able to keep histories of identical tasks by numbering them, and with the ability to delete history as well. We are again importing the agent and the prompts, and we are importing JSON to keep track of the history. We have the same function, select role, get system message, generate unique task name. This is if we have the same task in the chat history, then we actually add a count to the end of it. So this is how we handle same task names. Maybe you're trying to try with the same task name multiple times. You can still keep a history of them, or each one of them separately as well. This is the load the chat history items from the JSON file. Initialize chat history items, and here we are getting into the Streamlit. We set a page config to be centered. You can actually use wide as well, so that the elements in the browser will be wider. See, centered actually centers it in the middle like this. If it was wide, it would be going across like that. This is our title and the sidebar title. We are dealing with the OpenAI API key through. With the sidebar, I have commented this out in the local version. You can just comment this out and uncomment this. Well, we'll just leave it like this so that you get a password style input for the API key, and then deal with the API key right here. And then we have radio buttons for GPT 3.5 Turbo or GPT-4. I do want to mention that the inception prompts sometimes have difficulty with GPT-4. It triggers as moderation style responses such as, well, I cannot be an accountant, I'm just an AI model. If you experience that, maybe you might want to modify the prompt slightly to see if it'll work. Maybe you can say pretend to be the role or something like that, or whatever the role is. And the stats is just to keep track of how many times the app was used. This is just my way of keeping track of stats in Streamlit. The stats display right up here and updated from the text file. Going back, and now we get the roles from the roles.txt. I found these from CAMEL's GitHub, which I've just shown you. You can modify these any way you like, or maybe change the ordering of them. This is currently in alphabetical order. Then again, we get the usernames, role names for user and assistant. Then we make sure that both names are given. Then in the Streamlit interface, we only initiate, for example, the task screen after we've received the username. As you can see, when the app starts, only the usernames are available at first. Only when we have chosen the roles, then the task appears. This is to keep the screen from not being cluttered. So that's why we're doing if statements. Then we do if task and get the task. If there is a task, then we do the task specifier, and then only if there is a task specifier, we get a word limit. If we have a word limit, then we activate this code to actually make a call to OpenAI endpoint and get actually a specified prompt. And we write that to the screen. Otherwise, the specified task is the task itself. And when we do have a specified task, then we actually give the user the ability to choose a chat turn limit. Then we create a button to start solving task. If there's no API key, we throw a warning. Then at this point, we open the stats and actually we write the necessary thing to the stats. Actually, I believe this part of the code is redundant. Actually, this updates when the app refreshes. Anyway, this is not a big deal. Then we have the chat history items. We use the function to load the chat history items. And then we start a st.spinner. And we initialize our agents and start the role-playing session to solve the task. And the rest of the stuff is what we have seen in the terminal code. We create a chat history. This is special to the Streamlit version. With the spinner, we start the role-playing session to solve the task. We get a progress bar, and then we initiate a for loop for the amount of the chat turn limit that we have specified, the user have specified. Then we get the messages and we append them to the chat history, and we write them to the browser with the markdown. We are using some coloring with the HTML. This is a st.markdown from Streamlit. Then we get the assistant message. The first one was for the user, and we do the same process, append the chat history, update the progress bar, check for if the task is done, and then after that, once we're done with the loop, we empty the progress bar. And this is task name. We have this generate unique task name. This is for identical task names. Task name, if it's unique, then that's fine, but if it's not, then it'll actually differentiate between task names by adding 1, 2, 3 at the end of it. And this is our dictionary to write our JSON object, the task name, the settings, and the conversation. Then we open the chat history.json file and dump and write the history dict into that file. And then we are now closing all the loops if statements that we have created. If there's any problems, we give a warning to the user. And in the sidebar, now we're loading the chat history titles, and we are loading it from the chat history items. If you remember, this is going to populate the chat history right here, and with the ability to delete chat history. We put it right here. We put it on the browser with the st.sidebar select box. And if the selected history is none, if there is a selected history, meaning selected history is not none, then we show the delete history button. Otherwise, it doesn't show. As you see, if it is none, then the button is not appearing. It's just a better way of doing it. And if there is a history button and if there is a selected history, then we actually pop that out of the items, and then we actually update the chat history with the latest chat history items. And then we say selected chat history deleted, and then we rerun so that we update the selector. And this is to display the selected chat history on the browser. If there is a selected chat history, then we define the selected chat history item. We get the settings out of that the JSON object and the conversation, and then we write the selected history, and then we write the settings right here, like AI assistant role, AI user role, model, and the chat turn limit. And then for message and conversation, we write it as a markdown, just like this, with a for loop. And then this is for error checking if there is no chat history available for that. And this is a link that I put to my Echo Hive website, which I am just showing you, which is right here. You can actually click on it and go there and search for videos of your liking. For example, if you want to learn more about Langchain, you can search for that. If you want to learn about Streamlit user interfaces, for example, or you want to build with Fast API, Python backend. There's a lot of cool stuff here. There's also a really cool fine-tuning video for text-to-image. You can take a look at these as well. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Take a look at the original library as well. There's a lot of cool stuff here, actually. Yeah, they have demo apps here as well. Anyway, please join our Discord channel as well if you like talking about this stuff. The link will be in the description. And I'll see you in the next one.